Most people fear loss. They avoid thinking about it. They distract themselves with comfort, hoping if they don't look at the worst, it might never come. But the Stoic sees things differently. He looks straight into the dark possibilities of life, not to suffer early, but to prepare early, to disarm fear before it strikes, to value deeply, not because something is rare, but because it can disappear. This practice has a name: negative visualization. It sounds cold, but it's not about pessimism, it's about awakening. Imagining the loss of what you love is not despair, it's a sharpening of perspective. You stop sleepwalking through your blessings. You begin to see everything more clearly, more vividly, more gratefully. You hug longer, you listen deeper, you complain less, because you've trained your mind not just to possess, but to appreciate. Not just to want more, but to see what's already here. Negative visualization doesn't mean living in dread, it means living in awareness. And in that awareness, you become stronger, calmer, more alive. Today, we're going to explore how this powerful Stoic tool can change how you see life, how you respond to hardship, and how you hold joy, not with fear, but with presence. So if you're ready to stop taking things for granted, if you're ready to feel life more intensely, not because it's guaranteed, but because it's fleeting, this episode is for you. 1. Imagine losing what you take for granted. You woke up this morning. You could breathe, see, think, move. You had access to water, maybe a bed, maybe someone beside you or someone to message. But did you stop and feel the gift of it all? Or did it already blur into routine, into background noise, into another day you assumed would be like the last? That's the quiet tragedy of comfort. It dulls the senses. It tricks us into thinking that what we have now is permanent, deserved, inevitable. And when that illusion breaks, as it always does, it's too late to feel the fullness of what we had. This is why the Stoics practiced negative visualization, to bring their awareness back before life did it for them. They would take a moment in stillness and imagine losing something they deeply cared about. Not to invite sadness, but to sharpen their love, to make their appreciation conscious, not accidental. What if you no longer had the use of your legs? Would you still take walks in silence, scrolling on your phone? Or would you start to see the miracle in every step? What if you lost the person you sleep beside? Would you still rush through conversations, or would their voice suddenly feel sacred? What if tomorrow your life changed, and the things you call normal today became unreachable memories? Seneca, in one of his letters, wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." The same is true for joy. He who imagines loss deepens his gratitude before it's too late. When you practice seeing the temporary nature of your blessings, you begin to hold them differently. You eat slower, you argue less. You say thank you more often, not because someone told you to, but because something inside you remembers. This kind of reflection isn't dramatic. You don't need to cry or spiral. You just need to become still and intentional. Try it now. Pick one thing in your life, your eyesight, your mother's voice, the roof over your head. Now, imagine waking up tomorrow and it's gone. Imagine the ache, the adjustment, the regret. Let it touch you, not to ruin your day, but to awaken it. Then open your eyes and return. And suddenly, that thing isn't invisible anymore. You see it, you feel it, and most importantly, you value it. The truth is, most people don't appreciate what they have until it's broken, missing, or too far gone. But you don't have to be most people. You can choose to appreciate while it's still here. That's the Stoic secret. Not avoiding pain, but preparing the heart to love deeply without possession. You don't own anything, not your time, not your talents, not the people you love. You simply get to witness them for a while. So next time you sip coffee, hold a hand, feel the sun on your skin, ask yourself, what if this moment never came again? Because one day, it won't. And if you lived with that awareness, even just a little, how different would today feel? 2. Prepare your mind for life's volatility. There's a quiet illusion we all fall into when things are going well, the illusion of stability. Days pass with predictable patterns, habits form, relationships feel secure, and we start to believe that the current version of life is permanent. But Stoicism warns us against that comfort. It reminds us that life is not a still lake, it's an unpredictable ocean. Winds change, storms rise, and if your peace depends on calm weather, it's not peace, it's dependency. The Stoics prepared for life not by hardening their hearts, but by strengthening their minds. They didn't hope the storm would never come, they trained for it. Because when you expect volatility, when you embrace it as part of the contract of being alive, you stop being surprised by change. You start being ready. You prepare your mind by observing how fragile everything is. You notice how fast health can fade, how quickly people change, how suddenly loss can show up without knocking, and instead of clinging tighter, you adjust your grip. You loosen the mental chains that keep you reactive, and you start meeting reality on its own terms, not yours. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now, let that determine what you do and say and think. He wasn't obsessed with death, he was awake to instability, and that awareness made him more present, not more paranoid. He understood that volatility is not a threat when you prepare for it. It's only a threat when you pretend it doesn't exist. Think of your mind like a ship. If you build it for perfect weather, it will fall apart the moment the tide shifts. But if you reinforce it, if you accept the chaos of the sea and strengthen yourself accordingly, you can stay afloat through anything. The Stoic doesn't fear disruption because he's not married to comfort. He's married to truth. He knows the world is constantly shifting, and he wants to shift with it, not against it. One of the simplest ways to prepare is to practice letting go mentally before life forces you to do it physically. Visualize the loss of control. Imagine plans falling through. Picture a situation where something you expected doesn't arrive, and ask yourself, can I still remain centered? Can I still choose my response? Can I still act with integrity instead of panic? Because control is never in the event, it's in your response. You don't prepare by controlling the world. You prepare by mastering yourself within it. And when you live that way, life's volatility stops being an enemy. It becomes a reminder, a teacher, a signal that nothing is promised, and therefore everything is precious. Preparation doesn't mean building a wall around your heart. It means building a foundation beneath your character. So when the world shifts, you don't collapse. You adjust. You don't resist. You respond. And that's how real strength is born. Not in what you expect from life, but in what you bring to it. 3. Appreciate more by imagining less. There's a strange paradox in modern life. We are surrounded by more, yet we feel less. More comfort, more access, more speed, more connection, and still less gratitude, less presence, less awe. Why? Because when the mind is constantly chasing what could be, it forgets to fully feel what is. The imagination, if left untrained, becomes a thief. It robs the present to fantasize about a future version of happiness that always feels one step away. The Stoics saw this danger clearly. They understood that the more time you spend imagining what you don't have, the less time you spend appreciating what's right in front of you. And this isn't just about gratitude, it's about power. Because appreciation grounds you. It brings your attention back from what ifs and someday and maybe to this exact moment where life actually exists. When you slow down and stop imagining how things could be better, richer, faster, you begin to realize how rare this ordinary moment is. The smell of your room, the warmth of your body, the quiet hum of stability. These are not small things. They are everything, but they get drowned out when your mind is constantly constructing alternate realities. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." But we've been trained to want endlessly, to use imagination as a projector for dissatisfaction. We scroll and compare, we fantasize and chase. And slowly, silently, we become numb to the miracle of what already surrounds us. The Stoic path offers a counterweight. Don't imagine more, imagine less. Imagine not having what you currently do. Picture your life without the simple things you overlook. No running water, no safe shelter, no ability to see, walk, or speak. Do this, not to scare yourself, but to reawaken yourself, to make your senses sharper, your moments fuller. When you stop imagining a better reality and start recognizing this one, you unlock a kind of emotional wealth that can't be bought. Appreciation is not a reaction, it's a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. You build it by noticing the small, by being still, by saying quietly in your heart, "This is enough. I am enough. Right now is enough." This doesn't mean you give up on ambition or growth. It means you stop using imagination to escape presence. You still dream, but you dream with your feet planted. You still pursue, but from a place of fullness, not lack. You still build, but without rejecting what's already beautiful. Most people don't realize how much of their emotional exhaustion comes from imagined discontent. They think they're tired from doing too much, but often they're tired from wanting too much, wanting a better version of everything, a perfect version of themselves, their relationships, their surroundings. And in the process, they lose the gift of presence. So train your mind gently. Catch yourself when you drift into unnecessary mental craving. Pause, breathe, come back to what's real, to what's here, and ask yourself, what would my life feel like if I stopped imagining something better and started seeing what's already right? You don't need more to feel more. You need less illusion, less projection, less mental noise. And when you learn to appreciate without needing to imagine, you finally start to live. 4. Nothing is permanent, including comfort. It's easy to mistake comfort for safety. We wake up in a warm bed, follow familiar routines, sip coffee from the same mug, speak to the same people. And with time, these repeating patterns form a false sense of control. We begin to believe that life will keep unfolding the way it always has, that if we stay in our lane and keep things stable, the universe will return the favor. But that's not how life works, and the Stoics knew it. Nothing you enjoy is permanent, not your comfort, not your routines, not your relationships, not even your identity. Everything you touch is in motion. Everything you count on is temporary. The question isn't if change will come, it's when. And more importantly, how will you meet it? Most people meet change with shock. They call it unfair. They panic when a job ends, when a relationship dissolves, when health begins to decline. But the Stoic doesn't see disruption as betrayal. He sees it as reality unfolding in its truest form. He reminds himself every day that comfort is a phase, not a promise. He uses that reminder not to live in fear, but to live with presence. When you remember that nothing is permanent, even the small things take on deeper meaning. The morning silence, the way someone smiles at you across the table, the moments when your body feels light and your thoughts feel clear. These aren't to be rushed through, they're to be honored, because they won't last forever. And that's not a tragedy, that's what makes them sacred. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't look for permanence in things that are born to die. When you expect permanence from what is, by nature, temporary, you set yourself up for grief. But when you accept transience, you find peace. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because you stop resisting what's natural. Loss stops feeling like injustice and starts feeling like part of the rhythm. This also means that when comfort disappears, it's not the end of stability. It's just the end of a familiar version of it. New forms of peace can be built, but only if you stop clinging to the old ones. That's the quiet power of Stoicism. It teaches you how to be okay, even when you're not okay. How to hold steady, not just in peace, but in the breaking of it. Start training your mind to see comfort not as something you deserve, but as something you borrow, a loan from life, and when life reclaims it, thank it for the time it lasted, for the joy it gave, and then move forward, not bitter, but wiser, because the one who needs everything to remain the same will always suffer. But the one who adapts to change, who expects the unexpected, and who embraces the impermanence of even the good times, that person is free. So the next time life is kind, don't rush through it, don't numb it with distraction, feel it, let it in fully, and whisper to yourself, this too will pass, not to ruin it, but to fully appreciate it while it lasts. 5. Cultivate resilience through mental rehearsal. When the world breaks you, it rarely sends a warning. It arrives suddenly, in the form of loss, betrayal, illness, failure, rejection, and by the time you realize it, you're already in the middle of the storm. Most people collapse in those moments not because they're weak, but because they were never taught to prepare. They've trained for comfort, not adversity. They know how to thrive in sunshine, but not how to stand in the rain. The Stoics approached life differently. They understood that true strength is not tested when things go right. It's revealed when everything falls apart. And so they rehearsed for hardship, not in fear, not in pessimism, but in clarity. They believed that by envisioning the difficult before it arrives, they could reduce its power when it finally comes. This practice is known as premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. But it's not about being morbid, it's about being prepared. It's about running scenarios in your mind. What if I lose my job tomorrow? What if someone I love gets sick? What if the path I'm on doesn't unfold the way I planned? And then, asking the most powerful question a Stoic can ask, if that happens, how will I respond? You see, mental rehearsal doesn't create pain. It creates capacity. It gives you a psychological edge. It shifts your attention from wishful thinking to strategic strength. It prepares your nervous system for impact so that when the shock does arrive, you're not paralyzed by it. You're ready to act. This is not about becoming emotionless. On the contrary, it's about becoming emotionally resilient. You don't avoid pain. You learn how to carry it. You don't deny reality. You engage with it early. You walk through worst-case scenarios not to live in dread, but to build inner calm. To remind yourself that even if the worst happens, you won't be destroyed by it. Think of it like a soldier training before a battle he hopes never comes. He doesn't train because he's pessimistic. He trains because he respects reality. He knows that peace without preparation is fragile, That courage, without rehearsal, is unstable. So ask yourself today, what hardships am I pretending won't happen? What situations am I hoping to avoid rather than preparing to meet? What would it look like if I stopped fearing pain and started preparing for it? Imagine the challenge. Picture it clearly. Feel the discomfort. And then rehearse your response. Rehearse your breath. Rehearse your self-talk. Rehearse your composure. You are not fragile by default. You are only fragile when unprepared. The Stoic way is not to hope that life is easy, but to become the kind of person who remains unshaken when it's not. And that kind of strength doesn't come from theory. It comes from rehearsal, from choosing every day to train the mind for what most avoid. So the next time your day feels calm, use that calm as a training ground. Imagine the storm, feel its weight, and build the strength to stand in it before it even arrives. 6. Foresee adversity to disarm it. Adversity hits hardest when you think it has no right to exist. When you assume that life owes you comfort, fairness, or predictability, any disruption feels like an attack. But if you shift your mindset, if you begin to expect that pain and difficulty are part of the landscape, not exceptions to it, adversity loses its surprise, and with it, much of its sting. This is the heart of the Stoic practice, to strip suffering of its shock, to look reality in the eye long before it forces itself upon you. When you foresee adversity, not as a possibility but as a guarantee, you disarm it. You meet it not with panic, but with posture. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And what is more powerful than knowing trouble is coming, and choosing calm anyway." This doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionless. It means refusing to be a victim of surprise, because surprise is often what breaks us, not the event itself. Imagine two people hit by the same setback. One expected smooth sailing, the other anticipated storms. Who do you think lasts longer? Who bends without snapping? It's not the stronger body, it's the more prepared mind. The Stoic trains not for fantasy, but for the real, messy, unfair and beautiful chaos of life. And in doing so, he builds a peace that doesn't disappear when things go wrong. It reveals itself. To foresee adversity is to keep your eyes open in a world that begs you to stay blind. It's to say, yes, things can go wrong. People will disappoint. Circumstances will shift. Comfort will vanish. And still choose to walk forward, fully aware, fully grounded. This doesn't weaken your joy, it deepens it. Because when you know something can be taken away, you hold it with reverence. You don't sleepwalk through your blessings, you savor them. Seneca warned, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary." But he also knew that thinking about adversity is not the same as fearing it. It's about mental rehearsal, not emotional collapse. It's a strategy, not a surrender. You're not inviting hardship. You're preparing for when it invites itself. So how do you do this in real life? You pause before comfort tricks you into thinking it's permanent. You imagine the plans that could fall apart, the people who could walk away, the health that could change, the fortune that could shift. And then you whisper to yourself, not in despair, but in discipline, "And if it happens, I will remain." That is power. That is poise. That is the mindset of someone who walks into every day with quiet readiness, not anxious, not armored, just awake, fully present to the fragile nature of it all, and unafraid. Adversity doesn't need to be feared, it needs to be foreseen, and once you see it, not as an invader, but as a visitor, you can prepare the house of your mind to receive it with grace. Because the Stoic doesn't wait for the storm to teach him how to stand. He builds his strength now, so that when it comes, he doesn't flinch. He simply breathes. 7. Value what you have more deeply. We often think we value the things in our lives, our relationships, our health, our time. But the truth is, we tend to notice their worth only after they begin to slip away. A body taken for granted until it aches. A friend overlooked until they leave. Time wasted until we feel we're running out. This is the trap of familiarity. It breeds blindness. And Stoicism offers the antidote: deep, active awareness of the present before it becomes the past. To value something deeply is not to fear its loss, but to feel its presence, fully, repeatedly, on purpose, every single day. The Stoics didn't wait for tragedy to appreciate what they had. They practiced gratitude not as a cliché, but as a discipline. They understood that the more you take something for granted, the more it fades, not in reality, but in your perception. And perception, as Epictetus taught, is everything. People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. So how do you shift your view? You start by slowing down, by becoming intentional about what you see, hear, and feel. When you eat, you taste. When you speak, you mean it. When someone laughs with you, you hold the sound a little longer in your memory. You stop letting moments dissolve into the background. You let them echo. This isn't some romanticized version of life. It's practical, because life isn't always good, and when it is, you better notice. Or else, what's the point? Valuing deeply means you understand that every moment is unrepeatable. Every person you love is mortal. Every comfort you enjoy is temporary. And far from depressing you, that truth should awaken you. It should pull you into the kind of attention that transforms the ordinary into the sacred. Imagine for a moment losing the ability to walk, to hear, to see the sunlight through a window. Now imagine getting it all back. How would you live that first day? How would you greet the people you love? How would you breathe? That kind of intensity shouldn't be reserved for emergencies. It should be practiced daily, quietly, humbly, gratefully. You don't need more to feel more. You need less distraction, less noise, less chasing, and more noticing. The depth of your appreciation is not measured by how often you say, "Thank you," but by how much of your soul you pour into the moment you're in. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future. And part of that joy comes from seeing what you already have, not as a placeholder, but as a privilege." So today, take inventory, not of what's missing, but of what's already here. And don't just list it, feel it, sit with it, recognize its weight in your life. Because the more you value what you have now, the less you will suffer when things inevitably change. Not because the loss won't hurt, but because the memory will be full, lived, real. That's the difference between a life passed through and a life fully inhabited, between existing and actually being alive. 8. Savor simplicity as a gift. In a world addicted to more speed, more noise, more achievement, simplicity often feels like a loss, like something we move through on the way to something bigger. A quiet morning, a slow walk, a modest meal. These moments are too easily dismissed as empty, as lacking. But the Stoics saw something else. They believed that simplicity was not the absence of richness, it was its very essence. The simpler the life, the clearer the mind. The clearer the mind, the deeper the peace. And in that clarity, you start to notice something miraculous. The things that truly feed the soul aren't complicated. They're small, they're free, They're already here. A deep breath, a thoughtful conversation, a silent evening. These are not the leftovers of life. They are life. Epictetus lived most of his life as a freed slave. He owned nothing, had little status, and yet his writings exude a kind of wealth that can't be measured. Why? Because he learned to savor the simple. He didn't need gold to feel rich. He needed only self-command and a present mind. Freedom, he wrote, is the only worthy goal in life. And the first kind of freedom is freedom from the hunger for more. We chase complexity thinking it will fulfill us, but often it only exhausts us. Every new possession adds a new worry. Every new title, a new pressure. Simplicity is not a step backward. It's a return to what matters, to what's real, to what lasts. And it's not just about what you own. It's how you move, how you think, how you relate to others. A simple life isn't necessarily an empty one. It's just one where the noise has been cleared out so that depth can take root. And in that depth, you begin to realize you don't need constant stimulation to feel alive. You need awareness. Try this. Spend an entire afternoon with no plans, no phone, no agenda, just your thoughts, your breath, the moment. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You'll itch for distraction, for novelty. But if you stay with the stillness, something changes. You start to see things you've missed. You hear the texture of silence. You feel a kind of spaciousness that nothing external can give. Seneca taught, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." And to stop craving more, you have to start appreciating less, not in quantity, but in noise. Strip life back to its essential notes, and what's left is often more beautiful than what we tried so hard to build. The Stoic doesn't avoid ambition. He simply aligns it with what's true. He doesn't live passively, but he doesn't confuse motion for meaning either. He knows that joy isn't found in the grand, it's found in the grounded. So here's the challenge. What can you remove from your life, not to suffer, but to see more clearly? What clutter can you clear, not just physically but mentally? What if for once you didn't add, but subtracted? Because the gift of simplicity isn't what it gives you, it's what it reveals. And what it reveals, when you're still enough to listen, is that the life you're searching for has been quietly waiting, beneath all the noise. 9. Fear less by imagining loss. Most people live in quiet fear of losing what they love, their stability, their relationships, their success. It's a fear that whispers underneath even the best days. What if I lose it? What if it all disappears? And in trying to avoid that fear, they cling. They tighten their grip on what they value most. But Stoicism offers a different approach. Don't run from the fear, walk into it. Don't ignore the possibility of loss. Imagine it, fully, courageously, intentionally. This practice, ancient and profound, is the very heart of Stoic strength. It teaches you not to fear loss, but to rehearse it. Because when you imagine the worst, not out of anxiety, but with clarity, you become less shocked by it, less bound by it, less controlled by the shadow of what might go wrong. Let's be clear, imagining loss doesn't mean wishing for it. It means preparing the mind. It means picturing what it would be like to lose the things you hold dear, and then realizing in that imagining that you could still go on, that you are more resilient than you think, that the human spirit, when trained properly, bends but does not break. Seneca practiced this daily. He would write about the death of friends, the burning of homes, the turning of fortune, not because he was dark, but because he was free. By seeing loss before it happened, he made himself strong enough to face it if it ever came. He robs present ills of their power, he wrote, who has perceived their coming beforehand. So ask yourself, what do you fear losing? A job, a person, your status, your health. Sit with it. Don't distract yourself. Let the feeling rise. Let the loss play out in your imagination. Watch it unfold, and then see yourself surviving it, breathing through it, rising from it. That's not weakness, that's mastery. And here's the paradox. When you dare to imagine loss, you actually fear it less. Why? Because you stop being ruled by denial. Because you've trained your emotional muscles for impact. And like a boxer who's taken hits in training, you become less fragile in the ring of real life. This isn't morbid, it's liberating. It lets you love more deeply, not less, because you stop pretending anything lasts forever. You appreciate more. You linger longer. You give people your full presence. Because now, you see them not as fixtures, but as gifts. Imagine losing the ability to speak. How would you speak today if you knew it was the last time? Imagine this is your final conversation with someone you love. How would you listen? What would you say differently? How fully would you show up? That is the power of negative visualization. It sharpens your gratitude. It dismantles entitlement. It clears away the fog of permanence and forces you to live now with all your heart. So instead of saying, "I hope nothing bad happens," try something braver. "I will prepare for whatever does." Because fear doesn't shrink when ignored. It shrinks when faced. And the Stoic doesn't fear loss, not because he's numb to it, but because he's already met it in the mind. 10. Ground your joy in awareness. Joy is not found in what we own, nor is it guaranteed by achievement, relationships, or even good fortune. True joy, the kind that remains steady when life tilts, is born from awareness. Not the kind of awareness that analyzes or overthinks, but the kind that simply sees, fully, without resistance, without grasping. Most of us chase happiness like a distant reward. Once I finish this, once I fix that, once I get there. But the moment we get there, the mind has already moved the finish line. It's never satisfied, not because we lack joy, but because we lack awareness of the joy that's already present. The Stoics knew this. They didn't speak of joy as something grand or explosive. They saw it as stillness, as contentment born from alignment with nature, from acceptance of what is, not endless craving for what could be. And that's where awareness comes in, because you can only appreciate life when you're awake to it, and you can only be awake when you stop sleepwalking through your days, buried in distraction and dissatisfaction. Epictetus wrote, "There is only one path to happiness, and that is in giving up all outside of your power. And what's left when you give that up? Presence, the breath, the body, the moment. That's all we ever really own. And that's where joy hides, not in the possession, but in the perception. To ground your joy in awareness means to stop outsourcing your peace. It means being able to sit in a quiet room, look around at nothing in particular, and feel full. It means watching the light shift on your wall and realizing it's enough. It means drinking a cup of water with your full attention and feeling life move through you. This isn't about renouncing ambition, it's about rooting it. It's about refusing to place your joy in something so fragile it can be taken from you. Because if your happiness depends on anything external, it will always be vulnerable. But if it's grounded in awareness, in how you see, how you receive, how you relate to the present, then no one can take it. Nothing can. Seneca warned us of the danger of placing our joy in outcomes. A wise man is content with what he has, no matter how much it is. That kind of contentment isn't passive, it's powerful. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need noise to feel alive. It doesn't need applause to feel worthy. It doesn't need more to feel enough. So ask yourself, how much of your day do you actually experience? How much do you really see, really feel, really live? Are you truly awake or just passing through? To live like a Stoic is to return again and again to this moment, not with force, but with gentleness, not to control it, but to honor it. You don't need to add more joy to your life. You need to see the joy that's already here. Ground it in awareness, not because life is perfect, but because life is fleeting, and that's what makes it precious. When the world grows louder, the Stoic grows quieter. When everything pulls us outward, to compare, to chase, to argue, to demand, we return inward, because that's where strength is born, in solitude, in stillness, in the decision to live our values instead of debate them, in the discipline of letting go of what the world owes us, and instead owning how we show up. Each of these 10 ideas, whether it's mastering the art of solitude or imagining loss to disarm fear, is not just a mindset, it's a practice, a way of living that doesn't depend on applause, certainty, or external validation. It depends only on how awake you are to what's already within you. So if you took one thing from this episode, let it be this: stop waiting for life to calm down. Stop hoping for easier circumstances. Instead, build a mind that thrives in any condition. Cultivate peace so steady, no chaos can shake it. And joy so grounded, it doesn't need a reason to bloom. The Stoic doesn't live for someday. He lives now, aware, intentional, and anchored. And so can you. If this episode sparked something in you, share it with someone you care about. And if you're ready to walk deeper into this path, subscribe, because this journey, this way of thinking, is not just a phase, it's a transformation. Stay strong, stay awake, and keep walking forward, quietly but powerfully.